Just in, Telstra has just announced that it's going to delay its 3G shutdown by 2 months. It was due to be June. Now you're looking at August. We have Telstra on next now, so we're going to unpack exactly what that means. Obviously, it's a hugely topical issue with so much around that in terms of what effect it could have and if Australia is ready for the shutdown. But now let's turn and head over the Trans-Tasman. So John Key, he's known as one of New Zealand's greatest leaders, serving as Prime Minister from 2008 to 2016. His story is something of a movie. The son of an Austrian Jewish refugee who escaped the Holocaust while her family was sent to concentration camps. She was a driving force in his life, his father dying when he was just a young boy. So John would go on to lead an impressive career in finance around the world, even working with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York before heading to politics. I sat down with him a little earlier. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
When you were a young boy, you told your mother you wanted to be a millionaire as well as the Prime Minister.
Yep.
Do you always get what you want?
Sadly not. You learn that in politics. But yeah, she was, I mean, my mother was an amazing woman. She was like, she had these incredibly, if you know anything about Austrian Jewish matriarchal mothers, you know, they have very strong views about what their sons can and can't do. So I also came home when I was 15 once and said, I want to leave school and become a horse trainer. And she was like, no. And I went, well, can we have a bit of a talk about that? And she was like, no, we're never talking about this again. That was it. There was no conversation. So yeah, she was pretty heavy with the, you know, politics fine, make money, yep, that was all important, but no.
What was it about as a child that appealed to you to be PM?
Look, I think when you're 10 or 11, which is when I first started running around going, you know, I want to be Prime Minister, I think your motivations and the things that are driving you are different. But, you know, I could kind of see that that person in that role had influence and could do things and they were important and powerful. And I guess, you know, I was attracted to all that. By the time I actually retired from investment banking to run, having spent a lifetime saying I was going to go and do it, obviously it was different. But by then it was, you know, I reckon all politicians have an A-type personality and a very healthy sense of confidence. So I honestly believed I had the skills to make a difference and I could change New Zealand and I could, you know, add the things I'd learned both offshore and domestically and make New Zealand a better country. So the motivations were different, but the passion to do it was always the same.
Your mother had a massive impact on your life. What did she teach you?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, absolute determination. So she used to say, get out of life what you put into it. And, you know, young kids, when I'd go around and talk to schools over the, you know, course of time when I was Prime Minister and the leader, they'd always say to me, what's the one thing you work off? And I'd say that. And Mum would say, look, there's nothing wrong with failing, but there's something terribly wrong with not trying. And I'm not really interested in excuses, I'm interested in the outcome. So she was really determined. But actually, and that was the product of her whole life, having to rebuild a few times after, you know, the Nazis invaded Austria and after Dad died and there was no money and, you know, she had to pick us all up. And I think she realised, look, it's hard work that basically gets you there. And I always used to say that to youngsters about sports stars. I mean, it's easy to look at the great sports stars of Australia and New Zealand and believe that they are there because they're just really good at what they do, whether it's kicking a football or swinging a tennis racket or a golf club or whatever it might be. But actually the truth is, yep, they have that, but they probably have tens and tens of hours a week where you don't see them in the gym, practicing what they're doing, being utterly driven. And I think if you believe in anything, you've got to be prepared to throw the kitchen sink at it.
Are your siblings as driven as you are?
Sorry, my children?
Your children, sorry?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've got two. So Steffi is in London. She's a gemologist, so she's a jeweller. So she makes jewelry. And funnily enough, she would say she's completely, you know, not commercial, left-hand side of the brain type of thing. But actually, she is pretty commercial. She can kind of work out what she's doing, and she's got a great little business. And she's quite amusing actually because my wife's maiden name is Cherry. And my mother's maiden name was Lazar. So typical Steffi, she renamed her business and herself Cherry Lazar, which I didn't say it sounds a bit like a porn star, but she was like, sure with me that wasn't part of the brief. And then our son is a property developer, and he is pretty driven. They both are actually. But fortunately, they have lots of characteristics of my wife, so you know, there's a bit
balance
more balance,
it out a little bit.
more balance in there. Yeah.
Hey, now I'm not sure if you're aware, but our current Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, he had quite a similar humble upbringing like you, public housing, single mother.
Yeah.
Is that where the similarities end?
Yeah, probably. But I mean, I don't mind Albo. Like I know him a bit from my days. you know, it's a funny thing in politics because, you know, I was great mates with Obama, and the entire time I was there, we came in at the same time, we served for 8 years together, you know, all that sort of stuff. We did a lot of things together, but I didn't agree with very little of his economic policy, but as a person, he was a good person. So would I have a beer with Albo? Absolutely, no issues at all. Do I believe in, you know, some of the things they're doing? I'd say no. I'm much more, you know, I'm 100% Liberal Party and maybe a bit of National Party over here, but Liberal Party, that's where my roots are. And I kind of believe, I'm an interesting mix actually for the right. I'm economically really conservative and socially really liberal. So I voted for everything, gay marriage, euthanasia, you name it, I've done it. But
The thorn in the side of the Conservatives.
Well, actually in a funny kind of way, it works really well because the public are like, you know, they are more socially conservative than you think. So euthanasia, you know, the polls are always about 75% in favour.
Highly divisive.
Whereas, but you know, and so my deputy Bill English, who went on to be Prime Minister when I retired, fantastic guy, he was really devout Catholic and really conservative. So the people that thought I was off the reservation, they liked the fact that Bill was there. The people that were liberal liked the fact that I was there. So it actually worked pretty well as a team. That was good.
Now, when you went in as PM, you were the richest person ever to go into that job.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you then stay grounded? Because from what I understand, everyone wanted to have a beer with you.
Yeah. Well, they used to run this funny poll, and it was who do you most want to babysit your kids? And I used to win it all the time, which obviously, you know, I don't know why. I think it was one of those, I think if you win that, it's probably quite good, because it probably means that they find that you're sort of reasonably relatable. But, I mean, look, we had, as I say, you know, an upbringing where, you know, it was a steakhouse, there wasn't any money, it was like, you know, pretty tough. And then I just went into banking and was lucky enough to make some money, you know, like, that was just the way it sort of worked out. So I don't think, like, everyone changes, and I'm not saying you don't get used to the nice things in life, but it's not like I can't remember what it was like and I can't empathise. And funny enough, actually, in the 08 election, I was telling someone yesterday, they had a left-wing journalist at the very end of the first debate, which is the one that everyone watches, and he obviously wanted to really line me up, and so he thought he was going to get me. So he said, so the question for Helen Clark and me, and she was Prime Minister at the time, was, are you rich and what does it mean? And she sort of, you know, flailed around, and she didn't want to say she was rich, but actually in the context of New Zealanders, technically she was, and blah, 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 and she just couldn't answer the question. Then they went to me, and he thought this is really going to embarrass me, and I went, yep, I'm rich, and I'll tell you what it means. When I come home at night and there are bills sitting on the kitchen table, I'm not afraid to open them, because I know I've got the confidence to pay them. And the problem in New Zealand is that we have too many rich people. The problem is we have too many poor people, and I want to make those people have that confidence to be able to live their lives with a feeling that they don't have to be terrified to come and go to the mailbox.
What do you think it is? Because Malcolm Turnball was our wealthiest PM in office, but he never managed to get that balance right. That was always a, I guess, place that the opposition could get him on, the place that the media and the public ultimately could get him on. Why couldn't he get the balance right?
I don't know, actually. I mean, again, I know Malcolm really well, and I like Malcolm. I guess we're just a bit different. I don't know. Everyone's different. It's a funny thing when you become Prime Minister, or you know, you have a style and you can learn from other people. Like, I'd look at other leaders and I'd look at other things, but in the end you've got to be who you are. Because I remember when I very first went into politics, there was a very famous broadcaster in New Zealand, probably the best person at the time. He subsequently died, actually, this guy Paul Holmes, and he said to me once, I knew him a little bit, and he said, look, John, through television they see your heart through your eyes, and they're either going to believe you or they're not. And if you're misleading them, or you're lying to them, or you're not honest with them, or whatever, they'll feel it anyway. So I don't know. I just was who I was, and I didn't get everything right. I mean, God, you know, there's a long litany of things I stuffed up. But anyway, it is what it is, and you know, you got to be who you are, and you got to be true to yourself. And if you are, you're consistent in the things that you do, because you want to have some fundamental principles of what you believe in. Like, I fundamentally believe in lower taxes and less regulation and market solutions, and you know, I don't believe in driving farmers off the land because, you know, we've got climate change. Yeah, it's an issue, and I actually believe in climate change, but I also think we've got intergenerational things we have to do, and have a bit of fairness about that, so that you're not asking Australian and New Zealand farmers to fight with one hand behind their back against people who are subsidised, who, you know, basically could just run us off the land. I don't believe in that.
Now, on leadership styles, when you decided to retire after winning a good stack of elections, what was your advice to Bill Gates?
Oh, to Bill English, I said
Bill English,
or Bill Gates, come between them. But no, Bill English, I sort of said to him, I said, look, trust your instincts. You know, in the end, you get lots of advice. I mean, the weird thing when you're Prime Minister is you sit there and you think, oh, I've got an army of officials. How hard can this be? Here's the bad news part of the story. All the easy stuff, you never get it. It's already decided. Everyone goes, yeah, it's all great. Yeah, it's not controversial. You get the things that are a line ball call and you have to decide. And I always used to say to our cabinet, I don't need to carry 61 votes in Parliament. I can do that, no problems. That's a majority. I have to carry 2 million voters who agree with it. And I think in the end you have to, if your instincts tell you this is the right thing to do, even if you're ahead of the public, you can get them there. And it was really weird, the Australian media, you know, because for years, like we never had a poll behind Labor, we never had a poll when we weren't, you know, basically winning every election, we never had a leadership story. And I used to come to Australia amongst the 5 Australian Prime Ministers I went through at the time, and they used to go,
nice little dig.
They used to go, we just can't work you out. We can't work your government out because you're doing all these things like partial privatisation, lowering the top rate and tax and all this sort of stuff. They're all individually terribly unpopular, but your government's really popular. And I used to say to them, yeah, but it's like medicine. You don't actually want to necessarily take it, and you know it's not going to taste great or feel good, but you want to feel well at the end of it. And I'm selling them the story of what it's going to look like at the end. And fortunately for us, we sort of did deliver that, you know, that very strong economy and better opportunities. So even today, you know, I walk down the street in New Zealand, I mean, still huge numbers of people stop and want photos and say come back and all that sort of stuff, because I always say the older I get the better I was, but you know, they sort of remember all the good times of that, so I don't know.
What do you make of the state of politics today?
More divided, I think. I think the world's become more divided with Donald Trump, and I will say, you know, a lot of people...
You worried he's going to get back in?
Well, I think he's going to get back in, you know, but I tell you what, I would say to people, you know, Donald Trump is not the problem, he's a symptom of the problem, because he only gets there when people vote for him. Like in the end, that's the reality. And I think America has never been more divided, whether it's on equality issues, whether it's on race issues, whether it's on gun control or abortion laws or whatever, it's just incredibly divided. But I think everywhere in the world it's becoming a bit more like that. And I think increasingly people are talking past each other. So I don't know, I'm not saying we should all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but I do think that there was a world where we were at least a bit more tolerant, and I think that's what's gone out of politics now.
So John, you're here at Beef Week, just lastly, you sparked absolute controversy when you cooked some blue snags in the last election. Please tell me you're going to leave the cooking to the Aussies this time around.
I want to tell you they were delicious. They were anything but delicious. But yeah, they got a bit of will. But that was election day. Our colour is obviously blue. And the butcher down the road, who's as blue as you get, he had them there in the thing, and I said, right, well, we're getting a dozen of those, and we cooked them up on the barbecue. I've got to say the kids turned their nose up to them, but anyway, but I ate them and, you know, sort of enjoyed them.
I can see why. Well, I hope you get a good steak while you're here at Beef. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, he's got to be a game man with some blue snags, particularly up on this side of the border in Queensland. Well, we are off to a break. On the other side, superhuman strength.